Hello everybody and welcome to another video. This one's a wee bit shorter, but I'm hoping to give you some good tips on how to make your awesome looking camo cloaks for all your sneaky beaky boys. Let's do it. So our model today will be this Raven Guard Captain in Phobos armour. I'm going to be painting him outside of the video, so you'll see him change states a few times, but it's not too important. If you want to follow the Raven Guard scheme that I've been using, there's a video that came out last week, linked in the top right. Now, as I said, the colours don't matter, I'm just matching the base in this situation. So I'm using Baraknar Burgundy to do 2 coats all over the cloak. I recommend doing this immediately after priming, get the armour primed and then do the cloak, because if you make any mistakes, you're not going all over your hard work. As mentioned, doing 2 thin coats because this is a really transparent paint. My advice would be, if you have any kind of basing scheme that uses a large primary colour like a yellow, red, blue, whatever, just use that as your base coat because they're trying to blend in with the terrain they're on. My next step was to mix in my base colour with a little bit of an off-white, in this case pale grey blue. With this colour I start painting some triangles and squares and basically some really jagged, weird looking shapes. It looks a little bit like the dazzle camouflage that you've got on warships in the First World War. But you could go any shapes you like. I'm going pretty jagged because I think it looks cool for an urban environment, which is where my Raven Guard are fighting. There's no real right or wrong way to choose shapes, but my advice would be, if you're going to use sharp shapes, then stay using sharp shapes. Say that 3 times fast. And if you're going to use rounded shapes, just use those. Otherwise the camouflage will look a bit messy and disjointed. But, you know, not in the way you actually want. Camouflage does look like that, but you know what I mean. My next step was to take a colour in the same family as my base coat, in this case Screamer Pink, and it has a slightly different tone to it, so I added some more shapes, making sure that I overlapped not only the base colour, but also some of those new shapes I'd added previously. This is going to be a recurring theme throughout this. You can always overlap your previous work, and that actually adds to the effect. Now I'm switching to a completely different colour that's more in tune with the armour, or some kind of urban background. I'm using grey, but you could equally use things like browns if your colour palette is more amenable to that. Basically, try out what you think looks good. I'm starting with a dark grey, German grey from AK, and then I'm going to be switching to a light grey, which is basalt grey, also from AK. Now a little bit more on how I'm placing the extra shapes that I'm putting on top. If you treat the base coat as something that looks like an ocean and all the other colours that you've been adding as little islands, there shouldn't be a path for little oceans of base coat to touch each other. So basically, if you can see an area where the base coat is linking all the way through to the top of the cloak or another area of the cloak and it's not being blocked by your little islands of colour, then you need to put a little island there. Hopefully that makes sense. Now we're going to be skipping ahead quite some way in the captain's completion status, as the rest of the model is now complete. What I'm doing now is based on all my previous work. I'm getting some Black Legion, or some other thin black paint that works for you, and doing a nice outline of all those geometric shapes that I added earlier. This is a really cartoony looking step, and probably isn't completely necessary if you'd rather go for a more realistic look, but I think it really adds a lot of detail and helps the model pop out. After I've done that, and it does take a little while, sorry, I'm going to add all my highlights. I'm keeping these pretty simple to make sure it doesn't obscure all the work I've done previously, using a generic pink for all the burgundy parts and a generic bright grey for all the grey parts. Naturally, substitute any highlight colours you want for your scheme. That's been a short video, but hopefully a useful one for all of you who are going to be painting some cool camouflage. It's not just restricted to camo cloaks, it can also be on armour panels and fatigues, whatever you fancy. I imagine it looks pretty cool on tanks. If you follow this guide, hit me up on Instagram under SaltonPlays40k, because I'd really love to see this done in different colour schemes. As always, I've been Sam. See you next time.